Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a sloppy sports and entertainment talk show that covers New York Giants football, Mets baseball. It's also got some movie reviews and some TV show recaps and reactions, along with some funny stories and life lessons along the way. It's hosted by a Giant Mess. That's me, the real cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former college quarterback and pitcher and current overthinker. You can leave a voicemail at 862-BIT-1986. That's 862-248-1986. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Mets. The Metros are playing some really shitty baseball. The worst baseball of the season and possibly in a very long time. We're talking we're going back to 2009 days, 2017 days when everyone was hurt. Recap the series against the Nats, the Tigers. We'll look ahead at the current series against the Reds, and then we get the Nats again. What can be done about this struggle, this slump? What can we do? How do we fix it? Is it time to push the panic button? How about you just put the panic button away for a little bit, okay? And then we'll talk about the New Jersey Devils going up against the Carolina Hurricanes. They're a thorn in their side, the bugaboo for as long as I can remember, and things are not looking great. Down 2-1 with Game 4 going on right now. Ugh. Trying to stay optimistic there. And then we'll look at the Giants, the New York Giants. They got their guy, Dexter Lawrence. They signed him to an extension. 4 years, $90 million. Phenomenal signing. Looks like the disease of me. We got the vaccinated against the disease of me. I don't know. What does that mean for Saquon? We'll also look at the undrafted free agents, which I didn't cover in the last episode. And it looks like there might be one or two guys who could make the final roster. So without further ado, let's get it started up in here. The Mets are playing really poorly. I think that's an understatement. I can't remember a stretch like this where it's been so bleak and so bad. And I know in previous episodes, we were looking at the series against the Tigers and the Rockies as the get right series. Okay, we've been discombobulated. We've been rattled a bit. Let's just get right against two teams that are struggling, that are in the basement of their respective divisions, subpar records, below 500. Let's just get back to our winning ways. Against the Nationals, we lost 2 of 3. We didn't see that coming, but they had an encouraging win, to cap that series. And so we wanted to take that momentum against Atlanta. We lose 2 of 3. But again, there was an encouraging win and there was an encouraging loss. Not all hope was lost. There wasn't a ton of despair. It was just all right, it's a bit rocky right now. A lot of turbulence on this flight, but we think we can land this thing. And then we go into Detroit and we get swept. I mean, the first game, close 6-5, and then it's 8-1 and 2-0. Scherzer looked bad. He got scratched from tonight's start in Cincinnati. They had to call up David Peterson, who got shelled. There was a New York Post article about how he's still pitching with discomfort below his right scapula, around his shoulder blade. I think that's going to be an issue. I guess he had that issue when he was with Washington in 2019. I think that's going to continue to be an issue. Speaking as someone that is around his age, the shit does not get better, my man. Your health, we can't all be Tom Brady. I don't know, maybe double up on avocados. Avoid tomatoes. I don't know what to tell you at this point, Max, but he's 2-2, ERA around 6. I don't know. I at this point, I'd rather just kind of shut him down and let him get back to some degree of normalcy. Because, he had the suspension and I don't want to say he used that as an excuse, but he did say that was a major reason why he's not pitching to the level that everyone expects him to pitch. that he has these little nagging injuries here and there, and that he's not feeling comfortable. He's not able to get the kind of velocity he wants. He's not able to get the kind of spin rate he wants. And so this is where we're at. And I honestly, at this point, I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense to lose your minds and to press and to pressure players. It doesn't make sense to do that at this point in the season. It doesn't make sense. I'd rather just see him just, hey, Max, I know you like to pace and you like to grind your teeth and you like to, you're a very intense dude. How about you take that intensity maybe out of the clubhouse? I don't know. But it just feels like he just needs to kind of go through the rehab process and get better. And we'll just we'll take our lumps. I'm fine with taking our lumps right now. Justin Verlander comes back against his old team in Detroit, and he has a really rocky start, and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, dude. I think he gave up 2 home runs in the first inning, and it was just like, this is officially a home run derby. I can't believe it's this early in the season, but the home run derby is officially off and running, and we are losing the home run derby. But he did settle down, which was good to see. Hopefully there's more of that in the future because, that, like we said, the starting rotation is pretty garbage right now, outside of maybe Kodai Senga, who gave us a nice, I think he gave us 6 innings, which is what we've been craving this entire season. We have not had our starters going finish 6 innings. Kyle Gelling from Barstool Sports, who does the We Gotta Believe podcast, their Mets podcast. I mean, he's almost, he has a tracker going of did the Mets starting pitcher go 6 innings? And it's like, we're 1 for 4, I think, since he started it. So, that was much needed from Kodai Senga. And then we have a 5-2 loss, a game that we had within our reach. The victory was there within our grasp. And then Adam Ottavino comes back from the paternity leave list and blows the lead. And then we have a 13-6 blowout. I guess that was, what was that, Sunday? I don't remember. But, we were so high on the bullpen at the start of the season. But your bullpen can only sustain so much and be taken, so much, can sustain so much, so many innings, so many appearances. There's a bend but not break mentality, but at the same time they have their limits, and I think that's what happens. Your starting pitching suffers. Maybe your bullpen can pick them up for a week, maybe 2 weeks, but anything beyond that, but beyond a series or two, and I think you're asking too much of the bullpen, and then you start having to call guys up, the minors who don't really have the kind of experience you're looking for. And so that's the crux of not having starting rotation that can take you into the 6th and the 7th and later innings. It taxes the bullpen. So then your bullpen suffers, and then you're giving up a lot of runs, and then your offense, then that pressure goes on the offense to make up for that, for those runs. And it's and so then they tend to press, and then they, ground into double plays when their bases are loaded, and they leave men on base, and they're not moving the guy over, and they're striking out, and they're not getting the clutch hits that they used to get last season. We had it really swell last season. We had it really nice, and instead we like everyone has said, we just weren't able to enjoy it because we were constantly fearful that the Braves were going to overtake us, and we were so concerned about the fucking Braves. And then the Braves end up winning the division anyway in the last 3 games, the last series of the season. And then we had to go up against San Diego. So it's like, I don't know, dude. Let's just figure it out. Take your time, figure it out. I know that people are calling for Mark Vientos and for Ronnie Mauricio to get called up. I don't know that's going to do too much, because where do they fit into this lineup? Where do they fit into the field? If you're saying Marte and Canna are struggling, does that mean you put Beatty into the outfield? You have McNeil in the outfield, and then you have Vientos at third and Mauricio at second. I'm not opposed to it. You kind of have to shuffle it up a little bit, mix it up a little bit. It's like in hockey when you pull the goalie, it's in football when you pull the quarterback. you just try and get something going. And if that means bringing up Vientos and Mauricio, that means you have to take away 2 spots from someone else. Who are you taking it away from? Are you really pulling the plug on Vogelback? Are you DFAing Escobar? Like, it's just, I think it's more trouble than what it's worth at this point. I am super excited for the down the stretch in September when the rosters expand and we're able to call them up. I think that's going to be phenomenal. You're going to look at, you have a really great glimpse at the future of the franchise, and it's looking pretty bright, my man. But at this point, they are tearing the cover off the ball down there in the minors for Syracuse and Binghamton, I guess. But it's a pitching issue at this point, and we just don't have the arms. David Peterson is in such a friggin' rut. McGill has kind of come back down to earth big time. Carrasco, I guess, has a rehab start coming up. We're not getting Quintana back until maybe July. We have the second lowest number of innings out of our starters this season with 170 and a third. And that didn't change tonight in game 1 against the Reds. Peterson was down early. It was 3-0 in the first. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, I just turned it on. Only the Oakland A's rotation has given up homers at a higher rate than the Mets at 1.9 per 9 innings. And the rotation's rate of 4.6 walks per 9 innings was the worst in the majors, to go along with an ERA of 5.34. So it starts with the starting rotation. That's where the wheels started to come off, was with the starters. And then eventually you're going through so many goddamn arms. To have Nagosic go long relief as much as he has, Brigham, Yacobonis, that's a hard pace to keep up for any bullpen. When your starters are not getting even through the 5th, then you have to get through friggin' 5 innings with however many bullpen guys they have. So the loss to Detroit and to Colorado, those ended up. We now have our 4th consecutive series loss. 3 of them to teams with losing records, with the Nats, Tigers, Rockies. We lost I think 11 of our last 14 games, something like that. It's one of the worst slumps that we've had in a very long time. It's reminiscent of when Mike Francesa, WFAN, I forget what season it was, but he tore the Mets a new asshole after they lost to the Rockies, whatever season that was. It was just like a joke of a franchise, joke of a season, blah, blah. Shades of that going on, but with a team that I don't think way better personnel. Just a roster that on paper. All right. Well, the mic went out on me during my rant, which was maybe that's a sign from God, from a sign from above. It's pretty awful. But there's that movie As Good as It Gets, right? With Jack Nicholson. This is as bad as it gets for the Mets. I really do think this is a cleansing. This is a detoxing. This is everyone just trying to get comfortable and get right, And from the top down, from Buck Showalter telling the team, just play better, to guys like Vogelback and Lindor, who, when they're interviewed by the press, they're preaching patience. And I'm not a man known for my patience at all. It's one virtue I do not have, but I need to start practicing it in addition to preaching it, and it starts with the New York Mets. We're within 2 games of a postseason spot. That's how garbage the National League is. As stacked as the AL East is, where every team could make the playoffs in that division, outside of the Braves and the Pirates, you don't have a lot of great teams in the National League. Lindor said, you don't win the division in April or May. It counts, it contributes, but we lost the division the last 2 days last year. And it's so from a fan standpoint, it's interesting how I've kind of used what happened last season and said, hey, let's not get too crazy about winning the division and trying to keep pace with the Braves or stay ahead of the Braves. Let's not concern ourselves with that. Okay? Just play good baseball. We're 18th in base. We're 18th in runs per game and 14th in runs allowed. I think a lot of teams in the National League are underperforming right now. One of them is that isn't underperforming, that's exceeding expectations, I think, are the Marlins. We're now tied with them below 500, although it doesn't look like we're going to be tied with them for long. This is the first time where we're below 500. And again, I honestly think that even I once said it would take us to be 10 games or more below 500 for me to really start to lose interest in the season, to really count them out. The fact that we have gone on we've had such a slump, and it just seems like nothing's working and we can't win games. To be just hovering around 500 is a testament to how we were gutting out victories earlier on in the season. I mean, do you remember when we were 14-8 or 5 or whatever it was, and people were still complaining? And it's like the Mets must have been like, you know what? We'll show you how bad it can get. You want us to lose games, we'll lose games. So, yeah, we have the Reds and the Nationals, and we're this game one of the Reds series going on right now. We're down by 1. Good to see that offense still has some fight in them. Lindor going deep. We did have the bases loaded 7-3 and came away with 1 run, which is frustrating. But Reds came in this series. They got pummeled by the White Sox, dropping 2 or 3 there. They were 14-20 heading into the series, 4th in NL Central, 5 games out. We won 5 of 6 from them last season, including 2 or 3 in Cincy. We have not lost a season series to the Reds since 2013, and we've won the last 3 series at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. So history would dictate that we should come out of this series with a series W, but I wouldn't be shocked if at this point we lose. I lose 2 or 3. I wouldn't be shocked. As far as the Nationals go, they were swept in Arizona to fall 13-21. They're in last in the division, and we won 7 of 10 from the Nats last season. But what a difference a year makes. I mean, I don't know that the roster looks that different for us from 2021 to 2022. I think if anything, we would say that there was a significant upgrade over last season. And yet here we are, It's a case of not a whole lot going right for us right now. The chips are not falling our way. We're not as fortunate as we were last year. The ball's not bouncing in our favor. So one of the great characteristics and traits that were so admirable about last season's team is that they refused to give in. They refused to quit. They kept fighting, and they would find ways to win. And you're not seeing that a whole lot of it early on in this season. But I truly do believe that they are going to use this really horrific 2-3 week stretch to their advantage. I think this is something that can fuel them as times get tough throughout the season, and say, remember when we were going through that and we stuck together and we didn't point fingers and we didn't blame and we didn't start sniping each other, and we stuck together and we bonded and all that good culture, the culture, positive team culture that you need in order to really make headway and win games and stun people and surprise people in the playoffs. That's ultimately what baseball comes down to, apparently, in the postseason, is like, all right, who's feeling themselves? I don't know if I have this year. I think I liked it on Twitter, but it is incredible to look at, and it's amazing how many people forget about it from year to year. So this is from a random account. I don't know how it showed up on my timeline, but and he copied it from someone else. So I don't even know who to cite right now. But the records through the first 50 games, the Braves were 23-27 last season, went on to win 101 games. We're all too familiar with that. The Phillies started last season 21-29. They made it to the World Series. In 2021, the Braves were 24-26. They won the World Series. And in 2019, the Nationals were 19-31 and won the World Series. So I just can't bring myself to count this team out this early in the season. I can't. It must be so exhausting to be Frank the Tank from Barstool Sports. And, even my mother, who's a diehard Mets fan last season, the team was winning games left and right, and she still found something to complain about. That was just because Pete Alonso grounded out in a scoring opportunity once over the span of a month. It's like we would love to have those champagne problems this year because it's all gone against us. But at the same time, I'm telling you, I think this is the worst that we're going to see. It really is. I don't know that we're going to win this game. It'd be great if we came back and won this game. Then we have Verlander going against Hunter Green. That's going to be a tough game because Hunter Green, even though he's 0-2, he's a 3.74 ERA. Hard to say. I thought this was the game that we could have got on Luke Weaver. He has almost an 8 ERA, and it took us a while. We had to knock him out of the ball game in order to get to the bullpen and get some runs on the board. And then we got our guy, Mr. Consistent, Kodai Senga, is 4-1 with a 3.38 ERA going against left-hander Nick Lodolo, who's 2-1 with a 6.29 ERA. So it feels like if we don't pull this one out, we could be looking at another series loss against Cincinnati, which, it's historical, hasn't happened, but crazier things have happened. The Phillies got no hit and went to the World Series. The Mets got no hit, I think, in the season that we went to the World Series in 2015. 2015 is a great example of I don't think anyone thought that we really had World Series aspirations heading into that season. And then it just took 1, 2, 3 players into the fold, into the mix in the second half in August to turn things around and to start clicking and for everyone to play at peak performance. Daniel Murphy in that season is a prime example of all season pretty decent, and then just decides that he's friggin' Babe Ruth in the postseason and it's just crushing home runs left and right. It's so the last thing, we've had a lot of injuries to our pitching staff. What I do appreciate about this team is that we don't have a ton of injuries in the field. Omar Narvaez notwithstanding. And I think Alvarez has been playing better. I know he just struck out, but I think he went yard in this game. He's hitting a bit better. It'd be interesting. I don't know if anyone has done any kind of analysis or studied how he's calling games and how that's affecting the starting pitching. And maybe that's a big reason why these pitchers are not making it through the 5th and into the 6th. But I think overall, it's slowly but surely looking like they have a solid catcher. And then we have the 4 game set at Washington. You have McGill going against Mackenzie Gore, who put up a gem against us last time around. He's 3-2, 3.65 ERA. You have Lucchesi, who did well against the Giants and then came back and did not pitch well against what was it, the Rockies or the Tigers? I think it was the Rockies, maybe. I think it was short turnaround, short rest. And I think that was the big question for Kodai Senga is they're really giving him 5 days of rest where normally you get 4. And I think Senga has said that he's willing to go and do the 4 days in between starts, but the team, the organization is just like, there's no need right now. There's no need. So I think Buck got tossed in this game. So I think some of it's getting to him. It has to be, to have to face the press after every loss and be like, your team is supposed to be good and you stink. Why? It's like that. It's like Groundhog Day. It can get a bit annoying. So, I don't think Scherzer's gonna. I mean, I would be surprised if Scherzer makes the next start in Washington against Jake Irvin, who has a 2.08 ERA, and then we'll have Verlander going against Patrick Corbin, who's 1-4 with a 5.17 ERA. I guess we could maybe, if we get a split of that series, I think I'll be happy. But again, 7 games. Looks like we're losing this one. But if you come out of this playing 500 ball, that's a step in the right direction. And I know it's not what people want to hear, and that'll do it. Yeah. So Mets just lost to the Reds 7-6. So you got 6 more games. I think if you are able to play 500 ball, all things considered, it's better than what you've been playing. It's better than what their record shows over the past 2 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, I refuse to get upset. I refuse. This team has got a lot of talent. And I don't think it's not a case of like 2017, 2018, where you had like just a rash of really bad injuries that took out a lot of key players. Yes, it has dramatically impacted our starting rotation. But I'm very pleased with our starting lineup's ability to just stay healthy, and maybe mentally they're not in the healthiest place right now because it sucks losing, but I still think that good things are coming and that they'll get hot and then they'll win 11-14. And it's like, remember when we lost 11-14, everyone said we like, we're not going to make the playoffs and fire Buck and all this other garbage. And it's like, it's just a matter of time. And I know there are a lot of fans out there that live and die with every single game. I can't be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm sorry. It's just not worth it. It's not good for your health. For your health, just go and enter your meditative state, transcendental meditation. Just repeat this phrase. The Mets are going to the playoffs. Mets are going to the playoffs. The Mets are going to the playoffs. Just repeat that for 20 minutes a day, twice a day. And then guess what? You feel a lot better about this squad. I don't know if I can say the same for the Devils. The New Jersey Devils are an enigma to me. I know I haven't been paying close attention, throughout the years, but I have never seen a stretch of games, especially in the playoffs, where the goalie gets pulled every game. I mean, game 1, we have a 5-1 loss. Schmid's pulled. Game 2, 6-1 loss in Carolina. Schmid's pulled. Schmid's been pulled in 3 or 4 games. And so they turned to Vanacek in game 3, which was on Sunday. And we win 8-4. Vanacek gets the start. It was still like we were up big and it was still uneasy. I just never seen so many games where a goalie gets pulled. And maybe this is the new NHL. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in the playoffs, no less. I mean, they've now played 11 games. And I think in more than half of those games, the goalie's been pulled due to poor performance. Like, what the fuck? Good to see Timo Meier back and scoring in that game 3 win. Jesper Bratt got on the board, Nico Hischier on the board. I mean, that's been the main issue for this team is your top guys offensively are just not producing. other than Jack Hughes, who had another big game. And Luke Hughes is now in the mix, and you can see like the pros and cons there, the highs and lows. Speedy defenseman, but also making like critical mistakes. He turns it over on that long cross ice pass that gets intercepted, and then eventually it turns into a penalty shot, which was a bullshit call on Dougie Hamilton, which turns into a goal. And then I guess game 4 tonight, he had another crucial mistake where he's trying to get off the ice, and there's a breakaway, and they score, and Carolina scores. So it was game 4. Vanacek gets to start. The first period, we pretty much own that period. It looks like, okay, we're gonna just continue what we did on Sunday and dominate, and ends up being like the last 5 minutes, just like all the momentum swung. It was like, looks like a completely different Carolina team, and they tie the game up, and it goes 1-1 after 1. And it's like, and they interview Jack Hughes, and he's like, all right, so what do you got to do here? And he's like, we got to get back to our game, which means being fast on the attack, speed kills, and move the puck quickly, move quickly, and we'll get out of here, we'll win. And from the time I turn off the TV in the living room to come in here to set up for this podcast, which I'm telling you felt like maybe 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, the score was 4-1. There were Carolina somehow scored 3 goals in a span of less than 5 minutes. It had to be less than 5 minutes. Could not have been more than 5 minutes. It's 4-1. I was like, oh my God, it's 4-1. I turned back to look at my iPad with the Mets game on. I turn back, it's 5-1. I turn my head back, it's 6-1. 6-1, they lose. And Vanacek gets pulled, I guess, early in the second. Schmid comes in, and I guess he did give up 1 goal. But yeah, they're down 3-1. And things are not looking great. I don't see them turning it around like they did against the Rangers. I thought that we were seeing like just basically a replay of a repeat of what happened in the Rangers series, where it's like, okay, we lose the first 2 pretty ugly, and then we win the next 2, and then we got ourselves a dogfight, and we're able to scratch our way out of it with the series win in advance. I just don't see that happening now. Carolina just has, historically, they best us all the time. And like, I didn't know this, but Carolina is like a really hostile environment, the Raleigh area, huge hockey heads down there. And like, that's a tough stadium arena to play in. So I don't think that the road is going to get much easier for the Devils. I don't even know where the Devils go from here. I mean, Hughes is leading the way he had 9 points heading into game 4. I think you'd like to see more productivity out of Heischer, Bratt. I know it's a lot to ask of Timo coming back after that huge shot to the face in the Rangers series, but you need everyone to step up. And it was good to see Miles Wood, stepping up in game 3, coming back after having a rough start to the New York Rangers series and contributing. But I don't even know who you start in net at this point. It's just like a roll the dice. It's literally they should just do a flip of the coin, because I think Schmid has played better, but he's also been pulled in 3 or 4 or 5 games, and Vanacek's getting pulled, and it's just like, maybe you just throw Mackenzie Blackwood out there. Like, all right, well, we haven't tried you yet. But man, I was so high on Schmid after the first 3 playoff starts. I was just like, holy shit, look at this guy. And I, calling him the next Brodeur, and then sure enough, he's just been, he's just getting dominated. So I think Carolina is a force to reckon with. I'd say if they escape the Devils here, they're easily the favorite to go to the Stanley Cup out of the East. I haven't been following the West too much. I know that Edmonton was the favorites going in there, but I don't even know if they're still around. Are they playing Vegas, and then you have the Kraken making waves. So listen, did a lot of people in the preseason, did a lot of people have the Devils winning a franchise record 52 games? No. Did they have them advancing the second round of the playoffs? Probably not. So it's a young squad, and there's a lot of promise there. I'd like to see them be a little more physical. Just goes back to the heyday era where it was like, we would physically impose our will on teams. So that was nice to see. And I don't think we got that here. And you kind of see that in the Rangers series and in Carolina. I think just getting like out physicaled left and right. Although it was good to see Jack Hughes take down that one dude in game 3. It's good to see that we have some fight. We're not just taking licks left and right. So yeah, down 3-1. Next game is Thursday night. It's at Carolina. I think that might be the final nail in the coffin. I hope it isn't, but if we do come out of there with a win, we do come back to New Jersey for game 6 on Saturday. So if there's ever, if you can just figure out a way to eke out a win against down in Raleigh, I don't even know. I don't know enough about hockey to like say like this is what needs to happen, but you just gotta get guys to step up and not make bonehead mistakes. I mean, they really had the opportunity in the first period, to go up 2-0. I thought they had a fair amount of opportunities and they just weren't attacking, and so they just let Carolina back into the game at the end of the first period, and they came out really flat in the second period, and that's what ended up, undoing them. Still proud of the team though. Still proud of just nice to have Devils playoff hockey. Last time we had it was 2018, and that was a pretty early exit against Tampa. I think we lost 4-1. And then before that was when we went to the finals against LA in 2012. So that's the Devils. Let's talk the Giants. New York Football Giants. Dexter Lawrence. Sexy Dexy. We got him. Sign an extension, 4 years, $90 million, including a $22 million signing bonus, $60 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of almost $22 million. In 2023, he'll earn a base salary of $2.25 million, a signing bonus of $22, carrying a cap hit of $6.6 million, a dead cap of $46.5 million. This contract has a potential out after year 3 in 2026, which would incur $8.8 million in dead cap. He'll be, if he plays throughout his contract, fulfills the contract, he'll be 30 by the time the contract is up, and a unrestricted free agent in 2027, I believe. I love this deal. I think it's great. I think the majority of Giants fans love it, and the ones that don't, I don't know what you're looking for out of life. I just don't know what you want for this team. I saw there was that pipsqueak who went on Colin Cowherd's show. I forget his name. He's a dork. I don't listen to him, but it was that clip of him like tearing apart this deal and saying like, I guess he must be boys with Saquon, or he's a huge Saquon supporter. And he's saying, well, you're going to give all this money to Dexter Lawrence, who didn't have any sacks in the postseason, versus Saquon, who literally turned around the offense and when healthy helped them get to the playoffs. And it was just like, you're talking about two different positions, two different situations. I mean, Dexter Lawrence was an all-pro, Pro Bowler, and we have had our recent track record or recent history with defensive linemen is we don't sign them to a second contract. We let them walk. And how many times have we seen guys that started with the Giants on the defensive line go to another team and have a long, illustrious career? Linval Joseph, Fred Robbins, BJ Hill we traded away, but there are plenty of guys that, Dalvin Tomlinson, there have been plenty of guys that have played really well, average to above average for us, and just didn't give them a second contract for whatever reason. And it's ultimately kind of hurt us to the point where we had to trade for Leonard Williams. And I know it's a Gettleman move, and we don't want to talk about Gettleman. I get it. We don't talk about David. Okay. But at the same time, it's just good that this regime recognizes the talent that we have, the young talent that we have, and understands the importance of keeping that core together. Right? You have these guys that have performed above and beyond. They've been recognized for their talents and for their production, their output. And maybe that's not necessarily sacks, like a high sack total, but it's also like contributes to 3 and outs, makes tackles for loss, plugs a hole, occupies 2 to 3 linemen to free up a linebacker. There are plenty of positive attributes and aspects of their game that you can look at and say, this is someone that we want in the clubhouse. We need to reward them for their play. They were playing well above the value of their current contract. We need to reward them. And Dexter Lawrence, they did it with Daniel Jones, and they did it with Dexter Lawrence. And I guarantee you they're going to do it with Saquon Barkley. And if they don't, that's going to suck. But I can live with it because there is a sense for most of the fandom that we have the right GM, we have the right head coach, and they understand that, okay, Daniel Jones might not be Patrick Mahomes right now, but can he be a top 10 quarterback? And what do the top 10 quarterbacks make? Oh, okay, it's right in that $40 million range. Jalen Hurts getting like $50+ million. Wouldn't it be funny if that dude never wins a Super Bowl? Very possible. So I'm all for it. I can't understand anyone, from the accounts that I follow on Twitter, Giants fan accounts, Giants accounts, media accounts, everyone's been in favor of it. I don't know who these people are interacting with on Twitter that are naysaying everything that goes down, but it feels like burner accounts from Cowboys, Eagles fans. So it's good to have him in the mix. And then you start to look at who else do you want to extend. I think Andrew Thomas is on that list there, right? And then it's just nice to not have to think about it. It's like set it and forget it, and now we can turn our attention to some other areas of that need improvement. So it's gonna be great. A lot of optimism. I really do think that he's a guy that could potentially end up in the Ring of Honor. He's talking about there's Hall of Fame talk going around. He has high aspirations, which is great to hear. I know sometimes we tend to value a player's humility and being humble, but it's also nice that they have goals and ambitions, and like Hall of Fame feels realistic for Dexter Lawrence. Obviously we'll see, but like, I think a lot of people are calling this a team-friendly deal. And that's huge because that completely dismantles that whole disease of me talk that Michael Lombardi had going on, where the guys want to be here. And we're going to get into the undrafted free agents, but those are some pretty good examples of some guys that had offers from other teams, probably a little more lucrative than what the Giants are offering, but they turned those down and came to our club because they see something, or they've felt something when they talked with Dable, or they talked with Shane, or they talked with the position coaches at the pro day. They feel it. They feel like family. Like Deonte Banks said, he felt like family when he talked to Wink. So that is what, Gettleman had been talking about for a long time, is like culture. We can't have cancer in the clubhouse. That was a lot of talk that didn't really translate. Now that is a reality. I think you do have the solid foundation for a great clubhouse with guys that are not shit talking. You take a look at the guy who did shit talk or was disgruntled, Tate Crowder, and they said, all right, if you want to be somewhere else, then we're going to let you go somewhere else. You don't want to be here? All right, then we'll make it happen. You got to want to be here. You got to want to play here. So I'm so happy to have Dexter Lawrence locked up. I think we're gonna look back at that deal and we're gonna be like, what a perfect signing. We didn't overpay. We got what we paid for. Um, and now you have to focus on, what we're gonna do about Leonard Williams, Dory Jackson, some of the more higher priced veterans that were kind of mercenary, you know, some might say desperation grabs on Gettleman's part. I think Shane, he's trimming and he's hedging, right? He had this really funky looking bush from Dave Gettleman. And now he's just going, all right, this looks doable. So yeah, very pumped about Dexter Lawrence. Very happy about it. And Saquon's next. I'm freaking telling you, Saquon is next. It's coming. And while he wanted 16, I don't think he's going to get 16. But if we're talking, I think guarantees are the name of the game nowadays. And that's what players are going for. So if they can figure out what Saquon's guaranteed number is, and I'm pretty sure he might have said it already. If they can figure out how they can get that guarantee locked in, all the other bullshit is just icing on the cake, right? It's just superfluous. It's like, it is what it is. So, but if they can get that guarantee number that he wants so badly, then I think we're in a good spot. I'm willing to friggin' roll the dice on Saquon from here to kingdom come, dude. I am. I think I have no doubt in my mind that he's worth it. And you just got to figure out a way to put him in positions to succeed, keep him healthy. And I think that, by drafting a running back and by having Breida, I don't know that you're going to see too many more games like the Houston game last year where they're feeding him 35, 40 times. I mean, yeah, that's cool once. Like 1 week out of 17, that's kind of cool. I kind of dug that like, let's just feed him. And if we continue to get 4 yards a pop, let's just keep feeding him. Hopefully you do that before a bye. You don't want to do that right before a Thursday night game. But I'm not going to lie, that was kind of cool to see. But that's not the game plan moving forward. That can't be the game plan moving forward. So, Saquon's next, dude. Put in the books. I'm so convinced that it's going to happen that it's an afterthought at this point. It's just like they just have to, I know that it got a little murky and it got a little testy there right before the draft where it's like we rescind our offer and we were walking away and they're not talking and and it's just like you only have so much attention, time, resources, energy, effort. And it's like, if you feel like you've hit a wall, do you keep hitting that wall? Or do you kind of say, hey, let's pause. Let's take a breath. We need to focus on the draft. Are you okay with us drafting a running back? We want to have some insurance for you. We want to give you some breathers. We want to manage your work a little bit more. Or we just want a player that fits a different part of the game plan, even though Saquon's all around, like just he can catch, he can run, there's not many weaknesses in his game other than maybe pass blocking. So it's like, can we draft a running back that can pass block? And it seems like Saquon was okay with it and gave the green light, which is cool. So he's gonna get his money and he's gonna feel really great about it. And then we're gonna have our quarterback locked up. We're going to have our running back locked up, our top defensive lineman locked up, hopefully our left tackle locked up. I mean, like it's all fallen into place. These are all the stepping stones to something great. I'm telling you. And you can put my stamp of approval, seal of approval on everything that's happened. I don't think there have been many missteps at all so far this offseason. So after I posted the draft reaction, we had some comments about like, hey, what about the undrafted free agents that the Giants brought in? So let's go and do a little rundown of that. They signed 13 undrafted free agents last year. I think Timon Fox was the lone UDFA that made the week 1 roster, while running back Jashawn Corbin, tight end Dre Miller, quarterback Zion Gilbert, and safety Trenton Thompson spent the season on the practice squad. And then defensive lineman Ryder Anderson made the 90-man roster, and then appeared in 7 games after starting the season on the practice squad, mostly when I think Leonard Williams went down for a period of time. And then we had, Davidson missed some time, so they had to bring in Ryder Anderson. And, I'm not going to sit here and say he performed above and beyond, but serviceable enough to appear in 7 games. So that's kind of can be an overlooked part of the process, right? Undrafted free agents. You think back to the top undrafted free agents of all time. Victor Cruz definitely stands out. Someone like a Jesse Armstead, who was drafted, but was drafted in like I forget what round, when they had more than 7 rounds, he probably would have been an undrafted free agent. So plenty of examples of guys. It's not every year, but there are once in a blue moon, there's a guy that emerges and can impact the team. One of those guys from this crop of undrafted free agents might be the guy that we see more often on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, and apparently on Black Friday this year. Bryce Ford Wheaton, wide receiver from the West Virginia Mountaineers squad. He was courted by Pete Carroll and Nick Sirianni, that son of a bitch. But he ended up bonding with Brian Daboll. I'll tell you what. Brian Daboll is so cool, dude. He in a very short span, he's won over the clubhouse. He's won over the team. And it's his consistency, his transparency, his honesty, being forthright, and, not sugarcoating anything and not sweet talking anyone and not talking out of both sides of his mouth. Just being real. And the players respond to that. And I love that. I mean, there was that clip on Twitter of him talking to Kayvon and saying, "Hey, I'm at the scouting combine. Do you remember when you were here last year?" And da-da-da-da. And it's just like the fact that he can just pick up the phone, FaceTime, call, whatever, and he has that rapport with his players is so huge. And that was Ben McAdoo's undoing. Was he lost the clubhouse because I don't think he knew how to deal with the tumultuous nature of what was going on. He had a lot of big personalities. He didn't know how to tackle it or address it. Daboll does. And that's it's so huge. And the fact that he was able to court Bryce Ford Wheaton, the fact that he, I think, was instrumental in the trade up to get, I want to say, Jalen Hyatt, because I think he talked with Sean McVay from the Rams to trade up to that spot to get Jalen Hyatt. I believe that was the trade. That was from what everything I've heard, that was Brian Daboll's doing. So, and this is a case of we were talking about, undrafted free agents getting better offers from other teams, but wanting to come to the Giants. And it's because of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen and Wink Martindale and Mike Kafka. I mean, it's not just Daboll, it's the entire coaching staff. You can see the immediate connection that Wink had with Deonte Banks. You can see how happy Wink is with Joe Schoen. There's just a general sense and feeling of everyone's kind of on the same wavelength. For Bryce Ford Wheaton, he said the determining factor was David Sills, one of his old teammates at West Virginia. Bryce Ford Wheaton is 6'4", 221, which is music to thine ears. I think we've all missed having that big wide receiver, that big body wide receiver that can make an impact in the game. 4.38 40. It's the 4th fastest among wide receivers at the combine, and a 41-inch vertical, highest among receivers. Scored a 9.97 RAS out of a possible 10. 9.97 out of a possible 10, which is ranked 11th out of more than 3,000 wide receivers from 1987 to 2023. RAS, for those not familiar, which I didn't know doc about before this year. Relative athletic score. 9.97 out of 10. This dude is athletic as fuck. He has elite size. He has elite explosion, vertical and broad jump, elite speed, like we mentioned, in the 40-yard dash, and the 20-yard split, and the 10-yard split. And he's good in the 3-cone, and he's elite in the shuttle. We got a steal. He was told, Bryce, he was told, Ford Wheaton was told by an NFL wide receivers coach during an interview at the Shrine Bowl that sometimes he looks like Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson. Huh? And other times he looks like he wouldn't start on a JUCO team in Iowa. Oh, by the way, ricochet shot for JUCO teams in Iowa. Step it up. So that's interesting and I think he said that he thought that he could go as high as a 3rd or 4th round. And then at the very least, he'd be picked in the 6th round, and then he goes undrafted and he ends up getting signed. So that kind of can tell you the boom or bust potential. All the raw, natural talent, physical assets are there. Elite, almost 10 out of 10 in terms of athleticism. It's just a matter of putting in the effort and getting your technique down, which it feels like this coaching staff, given all the setbacks we had last year at the wide receiver position, the ability to still crank out, like people are posting all these 90-yard plus drives that we had last year, one against the Packers in London. I mean, that drive was insane. That's Marcus Johnson and, guys that are not supposed to be, that were not on the roster week 1 or made the 53-man roster right out the gate. And the Kafka's ability to get creative and to give Jones the ability to move the ball and to use Saquon out of the Wildcat. And there was this drive where we didn't even have Saquon. So I feel confident that our coaching staff can mold someone, like they said, you can't teach speed and I think that was a major focus in this draft was like, you look at the Eagles and the kind of speed they get from a guy like Devontae Smith and how he can burn you, or even the Chiefs and like the speed that they have at the wide receiver position. And so I very confident that this dude is going to suit up and be active on Sundays. Like this guy is definitely going to make the team. And I think it's just a matter of time before he starts seeing some snaps in the game, especially if we have another rash of injuries. So, and we got him on the cheap, $236,000 guaranteed, received a $20,000 signing bonus in addition. So if you're saying, well, what is the normal signing? What kind of money we usually talk about? This is crazy. The final pick, Mr. Relevant in last year's draft, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, got $77,000 guaranteed in his contract, led the fucking 49ers to the playoffs. And I'll be honest, they would have beat the Eagles if he stayed healthy. You heard it here first. Gemon Green, cornerback from Michigan, 6'1", 183. He was one of the players that was involved in a scuffle last October when the Wolverines won 29-7 over Michigan State. He was assaulted in the not in the locker room, in the little I don't know, the promenade. What do you call that little runway? Aisle. Tunnel. Jesus Christ. He started all 6 of Michigan's games during the COVID-19 shortened 2020 season, but lost his starting job midway through the 2021 season to DJ Turner, who was a 2nd-round pick by the Bengals. And his defensive coordinators in his final 2 years at Michigan's were defensive assistants under Wink Martindale in Baltimore. So there's the connection there and why they probably brought him in. His RAS, relative athletic score, that's good. 6.64 out of 10. He has good size, good speed, very poor agility, but great explosion in the vertical and broad jump. So it's a matter of like figuring out how to get him a little more fluid in terms of changing direction. Seems like, straight ahead, he's got it going on. Straight ahead or straight up, it's just the moving side to side and getting agile that way, which is pretty much most of football. So that's kind of that's probably why he went undrafted. But another young corner in the mix, I honestly don't think you could have enough young corners, duking it out in the backfield there. It's going to be a battle royale in terms of, and then whoever comes, competition breeds excellence. Is that a quote? No, probably not. But I think that's a great signing. And then our next signing was Deontay Johnson, a linebacker from Toledo, 6'2", 235, so pretty decent size. Received $175,000 guaranteed. And this guy seems like he's a smarter dude, a little more academic. He's a mechanical engineering technology major. His RAS, not great. I think he's more of a heady dude. Maybe it's more about, and this is what I guess Bill Belichick preached for as long as he has, is like football IQ, football intelligence. He weighs that more heavily than raw talent. And that's probably the case with Deontay Johnson. 4.3 out of 10 on the RAS. Has good size, okay speed, but is poor explosiveness, very poor explosiveness, and then poor agility. So, that could be something that, I think a lot of times with college football, it's like, we're just going to take the naturally, physically most talented guys that have like the highest RAS scores or whatever, and relative athletic score, and we're just going to, let them do their thing. And it's like we don't have the time or space to fine tune players that don't quite have it right off the bat. Does that make sense? I feel like once you get to the pro level, there might be a case of like, oh, it's just a matter of unlocking this one thing, this one technique that a position coach can take you aside and say, hey, let's just work on this. And if you put in the effort, maybe you can become that guy. But again, much like you can't have enough young corners. I don't think you can have enough linebackers at this point. It's always good to get some more guys in the mix at that position. Because I don't know that it's necessarily, it's not settled. That other spot is next to Okereke. Okereke is open. This was an interesting signing, and I don't fully understand it. Cam Lyons, a long snapper from Charlotte, Akron's long snapper due to graduate after Lyons' freshman seasons, gave him the opportunity to get on the field, because I don't think he was a long snapper. I think he was a linebacker. He said, my redshirt year was just me and the other freshman punter on the side, just working by ourselves the whole time, not even involved in practice. It was like, hey, you two, just go get good at this. And so he got good enough to earn their starting long snapper job the following spring, was awarded a scholarship during training camp, and then he held the job for every game of the next 3 seasons. This comes after Casey Kreider, our long snapper, who we brought in after Zach Diassi's kid. No, Zach Diassi, not Zach Diassi's kid. Rode off into the sunset. So Casey Kreider just re-signed a 1-year, $1.3 million contract with $352,200 guaranteed this offseason. So this is an interesting selection. It's like, do they feel like Kreider's been slacking off and they need to give him some competition? I don't know. Ryan Jones, tight end from East Carolina, is a 4-star recruit out of Mallard High School as a wide receiver and cornerback, but he moved to safety during his redshirt year. Again, you're going to hear this with these undrafted free agents. I saw this expression a lot, this phrase, best chance to get on the field. We were just talking about, the long snapper who wasn't a long snapper coming into college, was a linebacker. And then they were like, if you want to play and get on the field, here's how you do it. And so this is the same case with Ryan Jones. And it's the same case with a lot of these guys on this list. A lot of the undrafted free agents. It's like they move positions a lot. You're not going to get a lot of playing time here. But here's another position that we're short on. We don't have a lot of depth. Try that out. So his best chance to get on the field was to transition to the strong side linebacker. He then shifted to inside linebacker, transferred to East Carolina in 2020, opted out, and then went on to become a tight end. And, 6'1", 240, so not a big guy. That stat line, 6'1", 240, reminds me a lot of Will Tye, who, was compared to like Antonio Gates, but an undersized Antonio Gates. So not the best size, but I almost see him as more of an H-back, like fullback / tight end hybrid type thing. He had 37 catches for 442 yards and 5 touchdowns in 21, and then 41 catches, 413 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. So, again, I think that's a case of like, our tight end room was rough last season, to say the least. When Belly went down, it was pretty brutal. So I think they're like, not again, not this time, Satan. We're gonna stack. And so we got Waller, we got Belly, and now you bring in Ryan Jones. I think a lot of people were hoping that we would have drafted a tight end. So, I feel a lot better about the tight end room heading into 2023. His relative athletic score, 5.41 out of 10, good size, okay speed, good agility, poor explosion. So he had an elite 3-cone score, which is interesting to me because that might mean if you're going to game plan or design plays for a guy like Ryan Jones, it's going to be very short, quick routes and schemes where it's like, a lot of like almost like what you saw at a Sterling Shepard. A lot of time that great in and out move that he does, sometimes on third down, sometimes in the red zone, that works almost 10 out of 10. So maybe that's something that they could run with Ryan Jones and with great success. Next up is Alex Cook, safety from the Washington Huskies, 6'1", 196. He was a wide receiver during his first 2 years at the Dub, and then got his first career start in the Rose Bowl. In the final game of his redshirt freshman year, he took over starting safety during Washington's 2020 season, which was reduced to 4 games due to the vid, and started 22 games over the past 2 seasons, earning all Pac-12 second team last season. He was also voted as a captain. Started all 13 games. Was the team's leading tackler with 82. Won the Defensive Skill Player of the Year. Won the Guy Flaherty Most Inspirational Award, the team's oldest and most prestigious honor. He won the Chuck Niemi Big Hit Award and the Starving Dog Award for his work in the weight room. These are not very like big name awards that a lot of other people would know or recognize, but that's cool, man. I think that's cool. So good to see out of Alex Cook. Similar size, maybe a skosh bigger than Julian Love. And the fact that he can lay the lumbers is great for a scheme like Winks, where he likes to have a lot of safeties creeping up and slot corners and kind of like hybrid linebacker safety corners that can come in and stop the run or blitz. So that's cool. Illinois quarterback Tommy DeVito. This is a New Jersey native, Cedar Grove, New Jersey. Went to Don Bosco Prep, which Don Bosco is no joke. One of the best parochial schools in the state. I know they always crushed us whenever we went to the playoffs and faced them. I think Jim Burt's son went there. If it's the Don Bosco I'm thinking of, I'm pretty sure it's that Don Bosco. 6'2", 215, all Big Ten honorable mention. Illinois Coaches Appreciation Award winner. Started all 13 games at quarterback, threw for almost 2,700 yards and 15 tutties. Illinois record 69.6% completion percentage, 4th in the nation, and led the Big Ten in completion percentage, 7th in the Big Ten in passing yards. 141.22 pass efficiency rating, ranked 2nd in Illinois history, ranked 6th in the Big Ten. He also ran for 6 touchdowns. Career high in completions, passing yards, passing efficiency of rushing touchdowns. Number 23 graded quarterback in the nation. Number 2 in the Big Ten, behind only C.J. Stroud, according to the PFF. That's huge. And I know Big Ten's not really known for the quarterbacks. That's still impressive. Number 21 passing in the nation, according to PFF. Number 6 in fumble ball security grade in the nation among quarterbacks, according to PFF, which is, again, another thing that Joe Shane stressed when people asked him why Daniel Jones deserved the contract. It's like, well, just look at his progression. He went from a turnover machine his first year or two to a guy that was secure with the ball, rarely turned it over, and that usually turned it into points. So it's good to see that they don't just value that with their starting quarterback, they value that with their third string practice squad quarterback. So he started off at Syracuse, and he had a pretty good sophomore year there in 2019, threw for almost 2,400 yards and 19 touchdowns and only 5 picks for 137.7 rating. So a guy who takes care of the football, can run with the football, makes good decisions, good head on his shoulders. So who knows how that turns out, but it's just, he was on the Golden Arm watch list. No freaking idea what that is, but it sounds cool. And, just sounds like a good guy. You know, ever since we lost Davis Webb, he went to be a quarterback's coach for blah, blah, blah. Chargers? Bills? I don't know. And people always praise Davis for being a great mind to have in the QB room. So this sounds like maybe this is Davis Webb 2.0 type of thing, where it's like just a guy that's he's a plus in the QB room. You know, maybe not going to see a ton of snaps and make a huge impact on the field, but in the days leading up to the game, he can be that guy that can help shape the game plan. Defensive end Habakkuk Baldonado from Pittsburgh Panthers, 6'5", 260. Started all 9 games he played in during the regular season, missing 3 games due to injury. Had 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a blocked kick. Had a season-high 4 tackles in 3 separate games. Semi-finalist for the National Football Foundation William V. Campbell Trophy, presented to the college football's top scholar athletes. So again, talking about a smart dude. All ACC academic football team, and he played in the Shrine Bowl, East-West Shrine Bowl. His best season was his junior year in 2021. He started all 14 games at defensive end, voted all ACC second team, had 11.5 tackles for loss. I guess Sports Reference had 12 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery on the year. And his freshman year, he played in all 13 games as a reserve defensive end, but was named Pro Football Focus ACC Team of the Week for his performance against Delaware. Had 5.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks and a fumble recovery. So interesting prospect. I don't know if do I have his RAS? I don't know if I have his RAS, but listen, I know a lot of people were craving and urging the team to go with an edge rusher. I mean, there were some pundits or experts that were mocking an edge rusher to us in the first, and it's just like, you're just not fucking paying attention, are you? Like, I know best player available, and I know whatever. I know we need depth, and I know edge rusher. Like, there were times where we're just not getting enough pressure from our edge guys, and that's why Wink had to do what he did and dial up a lot of stuff and get creative. But I just don't know that you need to go that extreme with it. So another body, fairly big body. So maybe he can pull a Ryder Anderson and show up in a handful of games this year. Ole Miss linebacker Troy Brown. I went to Sports Reference to check in on this dude, and they have two Troy Browns, but it's really the same Troy Brown, I think. And I clutched my pearls. Like, I was taken aback. I was aghast with what I saw because they listed him on the first profile I looked at. They listed him as 5'10", 177. I said, a bullshit, a red flag challenge. There's no way a guy is 5'10", 177 playing linebacker at Ole Miss, unless he's the scrappiest Rudy dude I've ever seen. Turns out, no, he's more, on the Ole Miss website, they have him as 6'1", 220. And then you go to the other profile in Sports Reference and he's 6'2", 218. So I'd like to think he's in the 6'1", 6'2", 220 range, which is perfect. They did start off at Central Michigan. He played 4 years at Central Michigan. Had 17 and a half tackles for loss his sophomore year in 2019, which that cannot be right. That seems like an outrageous statistic. On the Ole Miss site, I think they said that he tallied 16 and a half tackles for loss and 3 picks as a sophomore in 2020, but he was a junior in 20. It's just like, I don't know what to believe. I will say it sounds like he had a lot of tackles for loss, either his sophomore or junior year. His 75 solo tackles ranks second in the MAC and number 20 and 20th nationally. A 3-time first team All MAC selection at Central Michigan. Earned all conference honors in 2021 despite missing 2 games. And in 13 games at Ole Miss in 2022, he had 93 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and half a sack. His 49 assisted tackles were 6th in the SEC, and his 93 total tackles was 7th in the SEC, and not bad. He was an all SEC third team selection last year, a Lot Impact Trophy quarterfinalist, which it's interesting that they would put that on the old resume. Buckus Award watch list, Reese's Senior Bowl watch list, first team. He was a Herb Deramidi team MVP. Troy Brown, good looking dude. I don't know. I get the sense that he could possibly make some waves and crack the roster. I don't know. But at the very least, will be a great practice squad guy. But it's hard to overlook. I know it's Central Michigan. I know it's the MAC, but 16 and a half, 17 and a half tackles for loss. Whoa, what the fudge? And to be in the top 10 in tackles in the SEC, that's impressive. And you might say, well, it's for Ole Miss, a team that might be on the defensive. Their defense might be on the field a lot more than other SEC teams. Okay, maybe I can grant that to you. I don't know. Involved in a lot of shootouts, Lane Kiffin. I don't know. That's hard to overlook. That's something that's going to stick out to me. So really good crop of undrafted free agents. I think obviously Bryce Ford Wheaton, who we started with, is probably your best bet in terms of guys that are going to make the final roster. But, I could see someone like an Alex Cook or even Troy Brown maybe getting opportunities. We'll have to see as training camp unfolds, but also during preseason, I'll have an eye on those dudes. So that's the show. That's our episode. It was all sports and it was glorious. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll talk to you next time. Pretty soon, hopefully. All right. It's okay. I'm right here. I'll be here waiting. Adios, muchachos.